Old Dominion University facing some issues off the fields of play, and to shed light on those, we are pleased to be joined by the president of Old Dominion, John Broderick. First of all, Mr. President, when it comes to the Cox bill in Richmond, you spend a lot of time in the capital of the Commonwealth. Tell us what's going on there and what we need to be thinking at this point.
Well, just to put some parameter on it, Ted, first of all, the whole issue about costs for higher education is a 50-state issue. It's not limited to Virginia. It's not limited to Old Dominion. And so you're finding more and more scrutiny on what are costs and what are being charged and what is the difference between tuition and fees. And when you really look across the board, whether you subscribe to it or not, there's a significant amount of student financing that goes towards supporting intercollegiate athletics from Maine to California. So what I thought Delegate Cox was trying to do here was to put forward some legislation that tried to put some perspective going further as to how Virginia future students and current students would understand what their role is going to be in terms of paying for intercollegiate athletics. And I think what ultimately was reached was a pretty fair solution for everybody.
When it comes to looking down the road, is this something that will be voted upon, or how does this whole thing play out?
Well, it'll be voted upon in the General Assembly, now that the House and Senate have exchanged budgets here in early February. It'll be resolved before the end of this session. But what it really does for us, in essence, it takes away some things in terms of how your fees are figured. But in reality, it says we should, by 2025, be capable of covering our intercollegiate athletic budget with no more than 55% fee. And I think considering where that issue is going nationally, I think 55% is a reasonable number. And let's face it, the athletic folks, the foundation folks, the ODAF folks have known all along that they're going to have to increase their contribution here because we've been very hesitant to let fees accompany anything else further in terms of the move to Conference USA or FBS football.
When it comes to Conference USA, you are Vice President of the Conference USA President's Council. What is that role and how can you affect change for Old Dominion within the conference?
Well, I think the role is important because you would much rather be on the executive committee and be on the TV negotiation group and be part of who's determining the commissioner and his or her fate and so on. So, for only being in the league a couple years and being the vice chair of the president's group, that's kind of a nice feeling. Where the conference goes, we have a lot of presidents with a lot of different opinions. And geographically, we are spread out some, as you can attest from your travels. And so we don't always maybe see every issue the same way, but I think with just about everybody in the league being a public institution and being reasonably the same size, there's a pretty good joint philosophy there. But again, some folks are going to go a little bit more in one direction on one piece and some on others. But by and large, we're all kind of facing the same challenges, the same scrutiny, but also the same opportunities of being part of something new.
When you have these meetings, I'm sure UAB's decision to drop football has come up more than once. What's the vibe in the league on that topic?
Well, fair question. We just had a 2-day meeting, and I think, first of all, the league wants to get through the men's and women's basketball tournament. With both of those being sponsored in Birmingham, I think let's let the basketball tournament play out first. Ultimately, the group is going to have to decide. The bylaws clearly say to be a member of Conference USA, you have to participate in the following sports. Now, UAB, with the drop of the football piece, either has to get a waiver for that, or they would have to make, I guess, some sudden proclamation that they're going to get back engaged in football. And even then, that's unprecedented, uncharted, because nobody knows, okay, if you had a program and you dropped it, then what are the rules there? Does the NCAA or somebody require you to go back to the FCS level and do this or do that? But I would think by the middle of March at the latest, it has to be resolved in terms of the scheduling piece. And frankly, I would never want to see UAB or anyone go through what we went through when we left the CAA. So I want to try to take the high road on this, certainly for us as an institution, but I also want to have some level of conscience and concern for the student athletes at UAB as well as across Conference USA.
The move to Conference USA for Old Dominion University still a hugely positive one in your eye?
It depends who you're talking to, I guess. But if there's one downside with the league is obviously, our fans like to travel. And with some of these trips, like the ones that are still coming up to Texas, that changes the dynamic some. And it's even difficult for me. The team's 18-4, you'd like to be a part of that, but you're not going to end up in San Antonio and El Paso by accident. By the same token, I think the level of competition, I think we're in a pretty good basketball league, as good as we are. We're sitting around 4th or 5th on the men's side and about the same on the women's side. So I think that part of it has been good. I think we've shown with men's soccer and with football, we can compete in that conference, and in the case of soccer, win a league title. So, I think all of that is good, but, there's always places I would like to see some improvement.
Before we get you out of here, Mr. President, cost of attendance. It's an additional fee. It's not student fees, but it's another need to raise funds. Talk about cost of attendance and the Old Dominion theory on it.
Okay. Well, cost of attendance, in essence, allows you, as an institution, to pay the difference of what tuition and fees and so on would to a typical student. Now that price ranges dramatically from one school to the next. So that in itself causes me some concern, because technically a school like Birmingham could offer $5,400 for the cost of attendance. A school like Rice could only offer $1,200. So if that comes down to me recruiting you as a student athlete in any sport, is that a game changer that I can offer you $5,400 and somebody else can only offer you $1,200? That part aside, what philosophically still is uncomfortable for me is being the president of a public. When I look at 25,000 students and realize there's so many students here who can't progress as quickly as they need to because either they can't borrow any more money or they're working enough right now to pay for what they're taking. So I'm still troubled and bothered by the notion that I could give Ted Alexander, whether he needs any more, if he has any unmet need or not, $2,500 or $3,000, and yet Ted Alexander, the regular student, can only take 9 credits because he can't afford to borrow or work anymore. That still doesn't fit right, but it's going to happen, and we're either going to have to adjust to it institutionally, or what we're striving to do is going to get more and more difficult on and off the field. But I guess you can support some things, but be philosophically opposed to it, and that's kind of how I feel about that.
We appreciate your time today. Some very difficult subjects sometimes. Subjects will have far-reaching ramifications for the university and other schools in Virginia and throughout the country. Thank you, sir, for the time.
Yeah, most of these interviews are wiffle balls, so you hit me with all your hard questions today. But I think they're our fan base is very loyal. I think they need to know where we're headed with some of these issues. And, you can see where things are headed at the NCAA level, Ted, and some changes had to be made. Others will ultimately judge whether those are the right changes or not. But I guess the jury's out. Time will tell.
John Broderick, president of Old Dominion University, we thank you for the time.
Thank you.